Hello guys, today we are going to study about a topic called SNMP. So as you can see the screen, it stands for Simple Network Management Protocol, SNMP. So now at first, we'll be checking what do you mean by this SNMP or the Simple Network Management Protocol, right? So it's an L7 protocol, meaning it's an application layer protocol. It's an application layer protocol and it is used to monitor and manage the networking devices. Throughout the networking career, you might have worked on the networking routers or the networking devices like routers or switches. And of course, by now you might have or you might be familiar with the working of the router and the switches. The router, of course, it forwards the packets and switches, it forwards the frames. Now, thinking about the health condition and the, health status of the router and the switches, we have a protocol called SNMP to monitor the health condition and the health status. In the production environment, the routers and switches will be working 24/7, that too, maybe for several years. So in that case, we need to monitor the health status of the routers and switches so that if at all in case of any issues, we can resolve it. So for that, the protocol of SNMP was developed. It's an open standard protocol for network monitoring. And it uses the UDP port number 161 or 162. Now, so I told you it is used to automatically discover. So if you use SNMP, it'll automatically discover, it'll automatically monitor, and then we can manage the networking devices. Hence, we can monitor the key performance and obtain the complete information into the performance of the networking devices. And of course, we can configure the threshold limits and generate the alerts in case of anomalies. So now let me just explain what I just told you. So suppose you got some routers and switches in your production environment. You got R1 router, you got suppose R2 router, and now consider we got S1 switch and S2 switches. Now, so it might be connected to a network, and somewhere in the network, we will have a device. We will have this device here. And this device is we'll call it as SNMP manager. SNMP manager. Or we'll call it with another name called SNMP server. Or we got one more name, we'll call it as one more name, say the machine in which the SNMP manager softwares or these things are present, we'll call the machine as NMS. The NMS stands for Network Management System. It's a computer or it is a server in which the SNMP manager is there. Now, to do the SNMP protocol, you will enable the SNMP related things in the routers. And when you enable it, the SNMP agent will get enabled in the routers and switches. In the devices, in the networking devices, we got something called network SNMP agent, and these SNMP agent will be enabled. Now, so of course, the router will have the interface status. Right. Of course, if the router is running the OSPF protocol, the OSPF related things can be seen if at all the OSPF adjacency goes down or if the OSPF adjacency comes up. Or let me be simple, the router will have the interfaces. So the interface may have some errors. There may be some errors or the interface can go down. Or suppose another case is the temperature. The temperature of the devices needs to be monitored. Or in case of the interface or in case of the power supply also needs to be monitored. Some routers, the devices will be having redundant power supplies, or you will be having two power supplies, power supply 1 and power supply 2. So if this goes faulty, you will have to get informed about these things. So what the router will do is that, the router, in case of any issues or in case of any errors, the SNMP agent present in the router, they will send certain messages to the manager. They'll communicate to the manager. And the manager will let the network engineers or the network analysts know about these issues. So here the network analyst will come across these issues or will get notified when the agent is sending certain messages to the manager. So there needs to be a communication between the agent and the manager. So the agent will be sending certain messages to the manager, and the manager can also send certain messages to the agent. So what the manager can do is, manager can send certain messages called get message or set messages. So as is in the next, so these things can be viewed in the next slide. So we have discussed something about SNMP manager, SNMP agents. So now going back, so here, so SNMP manager, as I told you, can send certain messages called get message. He can send certain messages to get the values, to get the temperature related values, or to get the interface related values, or to get the OSPF related value. So get me this particular value, and then the SNMP agent will get this value and will send it to him, back to the manager. Or so this get function or this get message is a read-only message. Now, the set message. So the SNMP manager can set certain values to the agents. So he can set the values, like say, as an example, let me explain it. When the router temperature goes to 28 degrees Celsius, it needs to be notified. So 28 degrees Celsius can be set as a threshold value. It can be set as a threshold value. So the SNMP manager is able to set this threshold value to the agent by using this set command or by using this set message, which is a read and write message. Of course, you will be able to read it as well as you are writing this threshold value to the agent. So these are the messages that will be sent by SNMP manager to the agent. And in return, or say SNMP agent, as I told you, can send these informations back to the manager. And to send the information back to the manager, they can use the messages called inform message, or you can use the message called trap message. The difference between inform and trap, both are almost the same thing. The difference between inform and trap is that trap, it's just an unreliable message, while inform is it's a reliable message. So this is how the SNMP will work. So we'll be having an SNMP manager, and the SNMP agents will be present in the networking devices. And here, the agents will be having something called MIB, management information base. As I told you, as I've drawn the diagram here, R1, R2, S1, S2, etc. So these devices will have multiple information. As I told you, if at all this router is sending the OSPF related things, this OSPF related things needs to be sent. Now the interface related things can be sent to the manager. Now the temperature related things can be sent to the manager. So all these values will be present in this management information base, MIB. And in the MIB, so I told you they'll have a lot of values, and each value is called as object ID. So these are the components of SNMP. Now let me tell you about the SNMP messages. We have already discussed it. So we have discussed about the get message, which is a read message, read-only message. And the set message, which is a read and write message. And we got trap and inform messages, which are sent by the SNMP agent to the manager. Now, before winding up, so as I told you that, as we have discussed the theory part, let me just show you the practical part also. Or what we're going to do is, here, this router, we got a router here, and this router is given with an IP 10.0.0.1/24. And here we got a VPCS here, and the VPCS, consider this VPCS as the SNMP manager. So now this manager is configured with the IP 10.0.0.100. So we'll do a basic configuration of how to enable the SNMP in the router. So to enable the SNMP agent in the router, we'll go to the router. So before that, let me show you the IP here. This router has been configured with the IP 10.0.0.1. So here we got the router 1's console. So do show IP interface brief. You can see, yes, you can see the IP, the fastnet 0/0 has been configured with the IP 10.0.0.1. Now, And here, this PC has been configured with the IP 10.0.0.100. And this PC, this is the SNMP manager. It's gonna act as an SNMP manager. Okay. Now, to do the configuration, the SNMP configuration in the agent or in the router. Now, let me just tell you the commands here. We'll execute the command SNMP-server. SNMP-server. Then now, let me tell you about some more things here. SNMP. So when you do the SNMP, right? So just before going to the configuration, just let me give you some information about SNMP versions. So you got SNMP version 1, and you got another one called SNMP version 2, and version 2, of course, you got something called version 2C, which I'll tell you a little later. Now you got another one called SNMP version 3. Now SNMP version 1, it used the plain text password. So of course you got the agent and you got the manager. So when you send the traffic or when you send something between the agent and the manager, you can use certain passwords so that they'll get authenticated. Now, so the thing is that, so you can set certain passwords, and these passwords are called community strings. So you can set the plain text password in the version 1. Now you got version 2. Now when implemented with a community string, then that is called SNMP version 2C. And the difference between version 1 and version 2C is that version 2C can have, say, he can retrieve multiple things here. He can ask for, say, he can ask for the OSPF related things. He can ask for the interface related things. He can ask for the temperature related things, and all these things he can retrieve it as a bulk information. So that's the difference between version 1 and version 2C. Now you got version 3 as well, and in version 3 you got 3 main features enabled. Authentication, of course, it is enabled, and then encryption is enabled, and as well as the message integrity is also enabled. So these are the 3 major versions of SNMP. Now going back, so I wanted to tell you about the community string, the passwords. So now I'm going to set the password here. So now there's a typo over here. So let me correct it. SNMP server. Now what I'm going to do is I'll give the passwords, or it's called community string. So to configure the community string, the command is SNMP-server community. Now you can set the passwords, or you can set the community string for read and write operation. For read only operation also you can set the password, and also for a read and write operation also you can set the password. Suppose for read only operation, let me set the password of 123, and for read write operation, let me set the password of 456. So to set the password of read only, so now what I'm going to give is I'll give the password here 123, and then I'm going to mention it is for read only operation. That means for get messages, right? Then I can mention SNMP-server community, the password for rewrite. Suppose it is 456, and then I'll be giving it for a rewrite operations. So this is how you set the password for read only and rewrite. Now that you will mention SNMP-server, then you will mention what is the IP address of the server. So as per the figure here, the IP address of the server, or the IP address of the SNMP manager is 10.0.0.100. So you'll mention the IP address of the server. So here, say you will mention dash host. Then you will mention the IP address here. So either you can mention the IP address, or you can mention this format, the HTTP format as well. So here, say let me mention the IP address here, or the host name also can be given. So it is 10.0.0.100 is the IP address of the SNMP manager. Then you will give the password, right? Suppose that you want to say give the rewrite password, or say for the rewrite password, which is 123. Sorry, the read-write password is 456. So you will mention the read-write password. Then suppose if you want the read-only password, you can mention that also. So you have mentioned to the router, or you have mentioned to the agent that this is the manager. And what happens is that whenever he wants to send something to the manager he will contact this. So the packet will be sent to this 10.0.0.100. Now that you need to enable the trap or the inform messages. So now, as I told you, you can set or you can send the OSPF related messages. Now you can send the interface related messages, or you can send the casually. Suppose if someone is entering the config mode, then if you want to notify that, you can notify that also. So suppose, let me make it simple. So if at all somebody is entering the config mode, it should be notified. So I'm gonna configure this configuration here. So to give the configuration, I'll give SNMP-server. Then we'll mention enable. Either the trap messages can be enabled or the info messages can be enabled. Suppose I'm enabling only the traps. Then you can see the traps can be enabled for multiple things. Say they enable the config traps. You can give the command config. Or if at all you want to do for the frame relay, it's a previous technology, or if at all you want to enable the traps for HSRP. For HSRP state changes, you can notify the manager. Or for OSPF related things, you can send the traps. So different protocols can be mentioned. Suppose, let me mention the config here. So this is how you will configure the basic configuration of SNMP. Now consider, so I'm capturing the packets here. So let me capture the packets and show it to you. So let me start the Wireshark. So now consider, so let me go to the config mode and let me exit. Okay, so someone has gone to the config mode, so this should be notified, right? So in the packet capture, it may take some time. So if at all, again, let me go to the config mode. Again, let me exit. So when, say, I've configured a small configuration in such a way that, say, when somebody goes to the config mode, it will be notified to the SNMP manager. So what happens if I go to the config mode is that, say, the router or the SNMP agent will send this information to the SNMP manager. And we are going to capture this packet and we are going to analyze this packet. So let me show it to you here. So it may take some time. We'll wait till then. As nothing is coming up, let me try to do it one more time here. Suppose, let me configure something here. Host name, suppose R, instead of R1, let me rename it as R100. Again, exit. Again, we'll wait. Yes. Now you can see. So even though it is late, still you can see a lot of things here. You can see the SNMP trap messages. So SNMP trap is sent by 10.0.0.1, our router. So now let me stop this auto scroll. So you can see this. My router 10.0.0.1 is sending some SNMP messages to 10.0.0.100, which is the manager. So agent has sent something to the manager, the trap messages. You can see something. So when you capture the packets here, you can see SNMP header. And now this is version 1 here. What I'm running is version 1, and you can see the password. The community or the community string, the password is 123. And you can see the trap messages. Of course, they'll have multiple contents here. Say this, the values in the MIB. And then you can say, as I told you, it uses the port number of 162 now. So this is the SNMP protocol. So now, thank you.